Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Don't worry too much about Cuba's tourism boom. That's the advice from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. The multilateral released a working paper on Friday titled Revisiting the Potential Impact to the Rest of the Caribbean from Opening U.S.-Cuba Tourism. In it, the IMF says fears by Caribbean countries that the opening up of U.S.-Cuba tourism could seriously impact other countries may be misplaced. It says while the apprehension is understandable, the worry is likely unwarranted. That's because the history of tourism in the region shows it's possible for all destinations to grow despite large changes in market shares. The paper makes the case that while tourism shares have shifted with Cancun, Cuba, and the Dominican Republic becoming larger players in the region, other destinations are still growing at respectable rates. They also argue that the increasing U.S. tourism demand in Cuba will push prices up. They say this will result in a shift by some Canadian and European tourists who would have otherwise visited Cuba to travel to other Caribbean destinations like Jamaica instead. Grace Kennedy Financial Group has identified the next chairman of its flagship First Global Bank, FGB. He's noted banker Peter Moses, who takes up an appointment as consultant effective today. A statement from the company today says Mr. Moses is to act as a special advisor to Group CEO Don Webby on all matters relating to financial services within the Grace Kennedy Group of companies. Subject to approval from the Bank of Jamaica, he will also be appointed to the boards of First Global Bank, FGB, and Grace Kennedy Financial Group. The company says they're expecting him to step into the role of chairman of FGB on the retirement of Douglas O'Rain from that role later this year. Peter Moses has had a distinguished career in banking. He's served in several senior roles at Citibank and is a past president of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PSOJ, and the American Chamber of Commerce, AmCham. Deputy Chairman of the Economic Growth Council, Ambassador Nigel Clark, says the fate of the island's 5 and 4 growth target may be linked with the country's crime rate. He was speaking recently at the second EGC Progress Address to the nation. Here's more.
Ambassador Clark says growth can occur in situations where crime is high, but he says reducing crime paves the way for higher growth.
There's no doubt that countries can experience economic growth even in the face of high rates of crime. However, what is indisputable is that in the same environment, without crime, economic growth would be much higher.
The ambassador explains that lowering crime puts the country in a better place to grow.
So if your base rate of economic growth in a high crime environment is at X, then in a much lower crime environment, your base level of growth would be X plus Y.
He says the EGC's 5 and 4 projection is dependent on crime being drastically reduced.
Jamaica's baseline of growth in this period of high crime is in a region of 1.5%, 1% and thereabouts. If we can decisively have an impact on crime and violence, lowering the incidence of crime and violence, the data suggests that our experience of economic growth would be much higher, a la 5%, and hence 5 and 4.
For BATV News, I'm Norda Francis Williams.
Jamaica's second Porsche luxury car showroom will be opening in Montego Bay in the next 2 months. That's according to Deputy Chairman and CEO of the ATL Sandals Group, Adam Stewart. ATL is the dealer for Porsche. Mr. Stewart was speaking at the launch of the Porsche brand in Jamaica and the opening of its first showroom in Kingston over the weekend. Andrew Laidley reports.
According to the ATL boss, Montego Bay will benefit from more business and jobs.
We'll be opening in the next about 6 cities in Montego Bay, and we're looking forward to the brand being all over Jamaica.
He says creating jobs is a major part of his company's growth strategy, noting that he hopes to hit the mark of 400 employees by next year.
This company has gone from employing less than 100 people 7 years ago to we will break the 400 person's mark by the middle of next year, and we have leadership women at the top of the leadership across our car business, which is predominantly known as a male business worldwide, which is something I'm very proud of, and we as a company are very proud of, and we just keep going from strength to strength, and I just want to thank everybody for supporting ATL. It's our pleasure.
Mr. Stewart says getting the Porsche brand in Jamaica was not a safe move, but he says he's confident the brand will do well as business conditions in Jamaica continue to improve.
We believe that Knott's Boulevard and the center of the business district is alive. Jamaica is on all the right paths. Economically, we're doing all the right things. Everybody's looking at us. So, I'm very happy. I'm really happy with the vision of how this turned out. And, you have those moments in the meetings where like, should we do it or should we do what's safe? This wasn't safe, this was a risk.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Laidley.
And still to come, we'll tell you who the new CEOs are of 2 government agencies. Welcome back. CEO of Massey Gas Products, Rohan Ambersley, says his company is meeting global customer service performance standards. The company received an 84% average rating on the American Customer Satisfaction Index recently. Mr. Ambersley was a guest on the latest episode of BATV's business discussion show On Point. Anthony Morgan reports.
Mr. Ambersley says the company is focused on high-quality customer service. He says the company used the Satisfaction Index as a tool to benchmark against international companies.
We are trying to operate at a global standard. That this idea that, customer service is foreign to Jamaica is something we don't embrace, one, and two, that we're not comparing ourselves simply to local companies. Yes. We believe that customer service and people all over deserve customer service. So one of the things we have done is that we've sought to benchmark against international companies, and a tool that we use to do that is what is called the American Customer Service Satisfaction Index, which benchmarks global companies.
He says customer service is a continuous process that requires more than just the average smile.
One of the important things to recognize that service is not just about a smile and saying thank you. As important as those things are, it's about the capacity to really respond to the needs of the customer, and that's not something that is intuitive.
Definition.
It's about ensuring that people have the right skills, have the right attitude, and know what it takes to serve the customers.
In the meantime, the CEO says Gaspro's immediate goal is to improve their 84% rating on the ASCI in 2017.
We use AXI to do a survey, and we scored in the upper echelon of the survey, which we're very proud of. And it's something we recommend to other companies to actually seek to benchmark against global standards, because that will drive the kind of improvement you seek in customer service.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
2 government agencies now have new CEOs. Andrew Winter is the new CEO of the Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency, PICA, while attorney Shane Dalling has been appointed head of the Firearm Licensing Authority, FLA. National Security Minister Robert Montague made the announcements during his contribution to the 2017-18 sectoral debate in the House of Representatives recently. Mr. Montague says Mr. Dalling replaces Dr. Kenroy Wedderburn, who resigned to pursue other paths, while Mr. Winter replaces Jennifer MacDonald, whose contract at PICA came to an end. The Ward Theatre has finally started getting some much-needed repairs. The work started last Thursday. Mayor of Kingston and St. Andrew, Delroy Williams, says they're aiming to get the theatre operational this year. Tanika Bennett reports.
Mayor Delroy Williams says the Ward Theatre should be back in operation by August. However, he says the renovation is not yet intended to modernize the theatre.
It could be a phased process depending on where you're going. For us, it's really to get the Ward Theatre operational which means that it can be used. And from there, then we determine where we want to take it from there. If we want to now modernize it into a first world theater. But for now, what is important to us is that it is operational, which means it can be used by the schools and different institutions.
The mayor says some $40 million have been budgeted for the repairs to reopen the ward in the next 3 months.
There is a larger estimate for bringing it to a modern theater, but we are working initially with the estimate to make it operational, and that is what we are working towards now.
Mayor Williams says the work is focused on the theater's security.
Well, right now we are doing the grill work, which means that we have already examined the structure, the building, and to see where we need to secure. So that's what we have been doing now. So we're doing the grill work right in the entire building to secure the building. And from there on, we will move to the plumbing and some renovations to the bathroom and the changing room areas. And we are also looking at a design that will make the entrance of the building more attractive.
In the meantime, the mayor says the renovation of the Ward Theatre is important as it will benefit the overall economy and promote the creative industries.
For example, the US, the creative industries contribution to GDP was about 3.7, 3.8 of GDP. And we believe that across the globe, this is about what it is across the globe. So you're ranging from between 3.5 to 4.55%. And that is significant. And that is why, as a city, we have been saying that we have to encourage the creative industries, which would include the entertainment aspect of it and so forth.
For BATV News, I am Tanika Bennett.
Stay with us. Regional and international stories are after the break. Welcome back. It's time now for regional and international news. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has announced a 60% increase in salaries for public workers to counter a series of violent protests demanding his removal. The announcement comes as pro-government supporters and Maduro's opponents prepare for rival marches to commemorate May Day. Al Jazeera's Lucia Newman reports from Caracas.
Venezuelan government opponents once more on the streets of Caracas, but this time to hold a vigil for those killed in nearly a month of protests against President Nicolas Maduro. All attempts to barter an understanding between both sides have failed dismally until now. On the plane returning from Cairo, Pope Francis confirmed the Vatican has been approached to once again mediate between Venezuela's government and its opponents, and is willing to do so, but this time with very clear preconditions.
I believe that this requires certain conditions, very clear conditions. Part of the opposition does not want this. It's a weird situation. The opposition is divided. On the other hand, it seems the conflict is worsening more and more, but something is moving.
The Pope indicated previous talks failed because the opposition was divided, but the Vatican has also been critical of the government's hardline position and repression against peaceful demonstrators. University students were here to mourn fellow student Juan Paulo Pernalete, whom they say died after being hit in the chest by a tear gas canister fired by riot police.
Today we pay tribute to Juan Pablo. We will remain here conquering the night, demonstrating that in the darkest night, students are light. That's when it's needed. When the people of Venezuela need more encouragement and hope, the students will be there for you.
Foreign Minister Delcy Rodriguez denies that Pernalete was killed by a tear gas canister, insisting that there is evidence that he was shot by what is described as a bolt pistol.
International media has reported that the death of this young man was due to the firing of tear gas, but it's not the case, and we have provided important and sufficient elements to go further into this investigation.
The embattled president accuses his opponents and foreign powers of creating an acute economic crisis to try to force him out, a charge protesters don't buy.
I'm eager for the electoral process to begin because I trust the people and know we are going to crush them again, with votes, with the votes of the people. Now, yes, the people get rid of these thorns that we've had since 2015.
A duty protesters say they plan to exercise once more on the streets of Caracas as pro- and anti-government demonstrators prepare for a major show of strength to mark May Day. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Caracas.
Hedge funds Anchorage and Blackstone's GSO are buying more of J.Crew's debt, hoping for a profitable trade that could also give the U.S. fashion retailer more time to stave off bankruptcy. Roselle Chen reports.
With $2.1 billion in debt, J.Crew is on the verge of bankruptcy, but the rescue might be on its way. Sources told Reuters that two hedge funds, Anchorage and Blackstone's GSO, are now buying more of J.Crew's debt. They hope to make a profit on a bond swap that the company wants to use to get out of the hole, but they also could give the retailer time to work things out. All parties involved declined to comment. Reuters reporter Jessica DiNapoli, who got the scoop, says the bet is vetted toward the company surviving, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will survive.
So J.Crew departed from its signature style of ballet flats and cashmere cardigans and tailored pieces that appealed to women and men basically across the country, and they went into more trendy, fun pieces that didn't appeal to as many people. Plus, they also struggled with the rise of e-commerce giants like Amazon.
In its latest belt-tightening effort, J.Crew said last week it would eliminate 150 full-time jobs and not fill 100 open positions. The retail sector has been swept with the wave of bankruptcies. Most recently, it toppled companies such as Aeropostale, American Apparel, Payless Shoes, and BCBG.
Thousands of Greek workers have marked International Labor Day by taking to the streets to protest against looming austerity measures. Greece needs more cash from its creditors to prop up a struggling economy. But to get the money, it's being asked to make cuts worth billions of dollars. Al Jazeera's Rob Matheson reports.
A red carnation, symbol of socialism, carried through the streets of Athens. International Labor Day, or May Day, was created at a meeting of socialists in the late 19th century to celebrate workers' rights. But these Greek unions say those rights are being taken away, and for 24 hours they've brought parts of the country to a halt. The creditors which have lent Greece money say they want more cuts in workers' pensions and another rise in taxes. $3.8 billion worth of additional savings over 2 years, starting in 2019. For protesters already facing tough austerity measures, this latest demand is too much.
The Greek government, like all the ones before it, have implemented measures that have only one goal: the crushing of the workers, the working class, and everyone who works themselves to the bone. We are fighting for the survival of the poorest, who need help the most.
Greece's economy plunged in 2010, partly because of the worldwide economic downturn, which began 2 years before. The European Central Bank and the International Monetary Fund were among several organizations which threw it a $345 billion lifeline. In return, they want big reforms to the Greek economy. Since being elected in 2015, Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras has continued to slash pensions, benefits and public spending. Controversial measures started by his predecessor, Antonis Samaras. Cash-strapped Greeks say they can't pay any more.
I believe we are at a crucial period. I am not sure how aware Greeks are of this, but looking at the number of people that have gathered here today, thankfully they are starting to wake up.
The Greek government wants to reach a deal with its creditors that would allow it to make debt repayments due in July. Unions are planning another general strike against the cuts on May 17th. Rob Matheson, Al Jazeera.
The United States says it will no longer ask South Korea to pay for an anti-missile system to defend against possible attacks from North Korea. The missile defense system, known as THAAD, has angered China, which says it's a threat to its security. Beijing is urging its citizens to boycott South Korean goods. That's affecting tourism and even South Korean TV. Al Jazeera's Divya Gopalan reports from Seoul.
South Korea's highest-rated drama facing real-life conflict as China blocks streaming of the show popularly known as The Goblin. Pop culture, one of Korea's biggest exports, is just one of the victims in the spat over THAAD. The thermal high-altitude defense system is designed to defend South Korea from a missile attack and has been a point of much debate. A recent suggestion by U.S. President Donald Trump for South Korea to foot a $1 billion bill for the system raised much anger. Washington has now reassured Seoul they will shoulder the costs. China considers the system a security threat, and its citizens are showing their displeasure by boycotting South Korea. Their absence is being felt. Here, sales have dropped nearly 60% since Chinese tourists stopped holidaying in South Korea.
I'm getting customers from Southeast Asia, but they don't spend as much as the Chinese.
South Korea has a major advantage as China relies heavily on Korean components for its own manufacturing industry. So any trade embargo would likely backfire, which means the bulk of South Korean exports worth more than $100 billion will be safe from any formal punitive measures. Nevertheless, experts say it's time for South Korea to diversify.
We have depended on the Chinese market too much. About 1/4 of the Korean export goes to China. And in terms of the tourism industry, the presence of the Chinese tourists in South Korea is almost half of the total number of visitors.
The signs on this stall indicate it will be difficult to break the reliance on Chinese customers. The owner says sales have halved and feels the industry's reputation is at stake.
Our strawberries are considered superior, but of course they rot if not sold quickly, and that can ruin the image of Korean strawberries.
China's reaction to the American missile system is costing South Korea billions of dollars in lost trade. But as businesses look elsewhere to make up for the shortfall from China, it's the affinity the Chinese people had for Korean products that will be hardest to replace. And losing that connection, the biggest price to pay. Divya Gopalan, Al Jazeera, Seoul.
Stay with us. Talking Stocks is after the break. Welcome back. It's time now for Talking Stocks. 42 stocks traded today, of which 16 advanced, 17 declined, and 9 traded firm. The main JSE index declined by 1,831 points to close at 229,587. The junior index advanced by 12 points to close at 3,268. Over 8 million units traded, valued at more than $81 million on the Jamaican dollar market. And on the US dollar market, over 8 million units traded, valued at over 81,000 US dollars. Radio Jamaica, with over 4 million units changing hands, accounted for 54% of market volume. Lasco Distributors was second with over 1 million units trading. Pan Jam Investments accounted for over 671,000 units crossing the floor. Paramount Trading was the top advancer, up 42 cents to close at $3.45, followed by Caribbean Cream, up 51 cents to close at $7.96, and General Accident Insurance Company, up 18 cents to close at $3.50. The main decliners were Consolidated Bakeries, down 20 cents to close at $3, followed by 1834 Investments, losing 11 cents to close at $1.70, and Scotia Investments, down $1.70 to close at $36.55. And that's all the news for this evening, but before we go, a recap of our top story. IMF says not to worry about boom in Cuba's tourism from the U.S. The multilateral says fears about Cuba are likely unwarranted, as history has shown that several destinations can grow at the same time. Thanks for watching. For more content, visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Pleasant viewing.